So, here's a question. How would you describe our Canada? Tonight, we start an ambitious new journey. Over the next year, the National is taking stock of who we are and where we're going, as a nation and as a people. We're going to be asking a lot of tough questions, and you may not like some of the answers. Here's where we begin. We're a country that will elect a federal government sometime in the next year. It will set Canada's future course. Who are we as a people? We're living longer than ever before. But are we ready for the challenges of an aging population? It's not just how we live that's changing, but where we live. Canada has become more urban. We'll look at the death of the small town and ask, do our cities still work? The gap between the rich and the poor is growing, and the face of it belongs to a child. Why aren't we taking care of our children? The way we work, play, communicate, and innovate, from politics to healthcare and keeping our country safe, Canada is at a crossroads. Which direction will we choose? Tonight, the CBC's Duncan McHugh kicks it off with what is one of those very tough questions. Are we racist?
It's tempting to think only in Canada, only in Toronto, could a place as diverse as Rum Corner exist. A melange of down-home Haitian food, urban hipster style, patrons every color under the sun. It's the dream of Jen Ag and Roland Jean to create a restaurant like this that expresses their histories, their marriage. The first time the two set eyes on each other, love struck, skin color irrelevant to them and their families.
It was no issue for either one of you. Race was not an issue.
No.
Did you ever talk about it? That it might be?
No. No, we had other fish to fry. We had like ex-wives to worry about, ex-husbands to worry about. Like, we were not concerned about race.
Those white kids.
And they're not alone. The numbers of mixed-race couples in Canada has nearly doubled since 1991 to almost 5%. In Vancouver, almost 10% of couples are mixed race. It suggests fewer anxieties, more integration, a country where racial barriers are steadily eroding. Exhibit A, Jen Ag. Growing up in a Toronto suburb, she simply wasn't aware of race.
Meeting Roland, it was just like, boom, instant attraction. It never occurred to me that I was attracted to a black man. It occurred to me that I was attracted to this person, and we fell in love, and that was that.
Did it occur to you that you were attracted to a white woman?
Well, he only dates white women. I'm kidding.
The market is white.
But it wouldn't have occurred to you, like, I don't think.
What about you?
That I was white.
No, you're sexy and handsome.
But here, let me interject. Mixed marriages are something I know about personally. I'm the product of one. When my blonde-haired, blue-eyed mother told her parents she was in love with a native Indian, they wrote her out of the will. My grandfather wasn't polite. Your children will be half-breeds, he said. My grandmother extended an olive branch. If they were to wed, it better be in a church.
So when I look at this footage, I haven't seen it for a long time. Obviously, it's a wedding, and everyone's all smiles for the camera, but what I see is the body language. I can see how tense, my father in particular, how tense everyone is. It was a taboo, and an Indian marrying a white woman. This was a line that just wasn't crossed back then.
It wasn't long before I came along, the first grandchild. That helped smooth over those tensions in my family. But make no mistake, racism back then was real and undisguised. Young Roland experienced it, fleeing Haiti, where drawing political cartoons put his life at risk. He landed in New Brunswick in the 70s to hostility of a different kind.
People in front of me will call me a nigger, or will spat at me in the car. They're driving nigger, they spat at me. But that never stopped me moving forward.
What would you think when that stuff would happen? Like, how would you respond
I would
to
say
it?
too bad for that ignorant white trash.
Racism didn't stop Roland. These days, he's a celebrated artist whose work tackles race in provocative ways. Sure took me by surprise.
Black people in painting. I'm a painter, and I said, why I don't paint my race? And that's what I'm trying to capture, strong black men and women.
In Jen and Roland's social circles, hip, affluent, educated, they simply don't face racism.
Jen and Roland, your cast.
This one is mine. Very close.
This is where we cuddle. So we made this a priority, and every single morning we come here and just have our honey cats and just hang out.
But beyond their comfortable enclave, stares and unwelcome comments aren't unusual.
Looking at Jen and I, and in an obvious way, especially this neighborhood, even 10 years ago, this neighborhood,
curious / disappointed.
And disappointed, you don't know really, but the look make you always think,
like, oh,
what do you want?
And that is my reaction always, is what?
They have a lot of stories about prejudice.
When Roland eventually moved into our place and we bought the house, the neighbors were so wary for so long. I mean, I'd lived there previously with my white husband, who they were fine with, but they were so just distant.
Or the time Roland was mistaken for a homeless man.
Until my wife asked me, hey, Roland, can I have some money?
No, I said, hey, honey, give me some cash.
Give me some cash. And he, oh, shit.
And like that kind of stuff. All the time.
You guys have a lot of those stories.
It's crazy, right? And like they're just starting to come because we're talking about it. It's not like we think about it or they're weight on us, but shit like that happens.
Of course.
All the time.
And again, there might be many who say that those are small indignities.
Yes.
Yeah, you try suffering them, you know? Like
it adds up to racism from your perspective.
Of course, in Canada, you don't have that debate because
we think we're all right.
What debate?
Are we racist?
Are we a racist country?
Yeah.
So, are we a racist country? It's easy to point to individual minorities who rise to the top, but success stories are tempered by studies such as this one, which found in 2006 men of color in similar jobs as white men earned 18% less. Canadian-born blacks and Aboriginal men face the largest income disparities. In Canada, it still pays to have light skin. Why?
Just gonna focus the camera here so that it's on the right spot. Okay, so now I'm gonna start the study and you'll see the faces.
In this lab at York University, research suggests overt racism in Canada has been replaced by something harder to see.
It's interesting how they always go to the left first, right?
Carrie Kawakami is an expert in the psychology of prejudice. In this test, she shows a subject white faces and black faces. The results? White subjects look other whites in the eyes, but rarely make eye contact with blacks.
So when you look more at the eyes, we found that you're much better at being able to identify the person later, the individual person. You're much more willing to interact with a person if you feel like you know them by looking into their eyes.
But this is happening in a split second, right? I mean, this is the face comes up and it's subconscious behavior.
Even though it might happen within the first half a second, we know that, you know, downstream that can tell us whether you might hire a person, your associations, you know, whether you have positive and negative associations with that person, and whether you're willing to interact with that person. So these really early stage processes are very critical.
Kawakami knows the extremes of racism in Canada. During World War II, her father lost everything he'd worked for when Ottawa declared all Japanese Canadians enemies and forcibly relocated them to internment camps.
But he grew up as a typical Canadian youth, right, an immigrant in Canada. And when he was interned, I think that really changed his world and the way he thought of it. And so, you know, the importance of race, the importance of ethnicity has always been something that I've been clearly aware of.
Decades later, her father helped build this friendship garden dedicated to the interned. It's a hopeful gesture, and one might argue racism is a thing of the past. But consider the results of another Kawakami study.
But our research actually just...
After witnessing an act of overt racism toward a black man, the majority of white subjects respond with indifference.
Our results really kind of suggest that people are really apathetic when they see bad things happen to people that aren't members of their own group.
Which you would call racism?
Definitely, definitely, yeah. I think racism at a very basic level is evaluating and treating people from other categories differently than your own.
More than 1,000 at a vigil last night. Amongst the tears,
Fontaine, a 15-year-old girl from Seguin
The
First
search for
Nation.
missing and murdered Aboriginal women takes to the bottom.
Find Tina Fontaine's
Pleaded
killer.
for the chance to drag the river. Now they get their wish.
Perhaps nowhere is indifference more evident in Canada than the tragic story of Tina Fontaine. When she was reported missing, there was no manhunt. About a week later, police came across the 15-year-old in Winnipeg's red light district and let her go. Not long after, her body was discovered in the Red River, where police were looking for someone else. She's now a grim statistic, one of almost 1,200 missing or murdered Aboriginal women since 1980. Tina's death prompted this, a group of volunteers to drag the Red River, hoping for any signs of the missing.
Now that water's gone down. Nick.
Kyle Kimach has been here every day for over a month.
A hard snag?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Kyle, what kind of stuff have you pulled up?
Variety of stuff. Clothes, dentures.
Dentures?
Yes, partials. Blankets, trees.
Bring her in.
He quit his job to do this, frustrated because police aren't dragging.
Okay, we got a stick.
What is it that brings you out here?
Nobody has done this. Nobody has done it before, and I believe it holds many secrets, and I'm hoping that my sister's not there, but if she is, I'm hoping that I can get her.
His sister Amber disappeared 4 years ago. The woman behind this effort, Bernadette Smith. The death of Tina Fontaine hit her hard. It brought back memories of her sister, Claudette, on the street for several years when she went missing at the age of 21.
So in your mind, what's at the heart of that lack of response?
I think that we've become, as a society, so desensitized to, you know, these young women going missing, and they're predominantly Aboriginal. People look at us as disposable, like no one loves us or is waiting for us or cares about us or it's going to miss us if we're gone.
Right Honorable Stephen Harper.
The federal government suggests it's tackling that issue, spending millions of dollars to combat violent crime.
With the recent death of 15-year-old Tina Fontaine, who was pulled from the Red River in Winnipeg in a bag.
When asked about Tina Fontaine, the Prime Minister expressed sympathies. Then,
I think we should not view this as sociological phenomenon. We should view it as crime. It is crime against innocent people.
We do have a problem in this country when you're looking at women, little kids being thrown into the river and, you know, disposed of like garbage, and, you know, our people being treated like garbage, like we're second-class citizens in our own home, then there's a problem. And I ask him to come and sit with families and feel our pain. You know, he lives a privileged life where he hasn't had to face what our people have had to face, even by the very reason of the color of his skin. I mean, he has the power to create change. Why isn't it being done? Because it's blatant racism, I believe.
when I look at this river, I think of my wife, my daughter, 4 times more likely to experience violence than non-Aboriginal women. Is Canada like this river? Beautiful on the surface, all our talk of diversity, but lying beneath, secrets, dark and venomous. When we come back, a mashup of race, food, and the truth.
It's almost worse than it is in the States because we think we're doing okay.
Toronto is one of the most diverse cities in the world.
How are we doing on wait times? That's a question that, because I feel
where
like
citizens of every color intermingle, intermarry. Yet, Jen and Roland suggest we're not colorblind, we're in denial.
It's almost worse than it is in the States because we think we're doing okay, because there's this sort of idea that we are tolerant, we are accepting, we are
polite,
integrated, polite society. But I mean, much the same way that people will stab you in the back while smiling at you, because there's so much hypocrisy in this culture and there's so much passive aggression in this culture, it translates over to how it goes with racism.
If in fact Canadians are quietly seething with prejudice, truthful conversation is the way forward. Maybe Rum Corner represents the future, a place where races fuse in beautiful and complex ways.
This is a mashup of our cultures and of our love and all of that stuff. Yeah. And we talked about it for so long, and we build it with our bare hands. Like, I painted those beams, and
I built the bar.
You built the bar. Yeah. Like, we built this place together, and it was amazing. And Roland painted the mural and all the stuff that happened here. I feel like this place is touching on something that's a cultural movement, and I feel the rumble.
If that rumble is a changing Canada, it starts by admitting we need to talk about race, not ignore it. Duncan McHugh, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC News would like you to join the conversation on social media. You can use the hashtag #MyExperienceWithRacism to send in and share your stories. And as we mentioned, this is just the start of what is an ambitious new project for the National. Over the coming months, we'll be posing more questions about our Canada.